Hey guys, Steve here. Now that spring is here, it's about time I finish this motorized bicycle. Now where I left it last time is, I did not really have any brakes on this bike. Now this is a 6-speed. That means when you pedal backwards, you get that clicking sound. There is no coaster brake on the rear wheel. This bike relies on the caliper brakes on the front and the rear tire. Well, on any bicycle you have your brake levers up here, but because we installed the engine, we had to remove one of the brake levers to put this clutch lever. So I went on Amazon and I picked up this dual cable brake lever. So this lever has two slots to where you can insert two cables into it. And when you pull the lever, it'll pull both of those cables. That means I can hook the cable from the front brake caliper and the cable from the rear brake caliper into this one. And when I pull this lever, it'll pull both the front and the rear brakes. So let me show you this brake lever and then I'll show you how to install it on a bike. So here is our brake lever. It's got the slot to put it on the handlebar. It's got the brake lever, and then it's got a slot for two cables to get inserted into it. If you flip it over, you can see where the cables get inserted, and this one is slotted to help install this on a bike to make it a lot easier. So looking at our handlebars, this is normally where the front brake goes, and we remove the front brake so that we can install the clutch on here. And on this side is where the rear brakes are. Now we're going to remove this one. We're going to install that dual pull brake lever right here. If we go down to our caliper, if we look at the brake caliper, this is the front one. This is the cable that goes to the brake lever. Now in order to remove the old one, we're going to have to release the tension on this cable. Now there's two ways to do that. On every bike, you should be able to remove this nut right at the bottom, and it'll loosen up the wire. Now, the bad part about doing it on here is when you reinstall the cable, you will have to squeeze the brake lever and put a lot of tension on this while you screw this nut back. Now, for me, I can go right up to this nut. Maybe a side angle there. My brake caliper has it to where if I remove this nut right here, it'll remove the tension on this cable and it'll help me to remove the brake lever. So if you do have a nut up here, remove this one first before you start messing around with this bottom one. But if this is welded on, like some of the brake calipers are, then you will have to remove this bottom nut to remove the cable. So let's go ahead and do that. Now there is no tension on this cable. Now we should be able to remove it from the brake lever. So this is the old front brake lever. As you can see that the cable is loose. Luckily mine is slotted to help me get this cable off. And you line up this slot the entire way, you should be able to remove the cable. And there you are. Now you can take our new brake lever, line up all the screws, and just insert it there. Locked in. Push the cable up and then go back to this and we can install this back into the brake. And now we'll move to the rear. Now the only bad part about this brake lever is that in order to put this on the handlebar, we have to remove everything else. Let's go ahead and do that real quick and then we can slide this on. Now that we installed the brake lever and we see that it works, the last thing we need to do is we need to tighten up each of these brake calipers. On each of these calipers there is a screw that you elongate, and that will tighten up the brake caliper on the tire, getting both of those brake pads closer to the tire. There's also one on the rear. And then as well, there are two that are on the brake lever itself. Now, if you tighten these up, it'll shrink the gap that is on these calipers onto the wheel. And you want to make it so when you pull the lever, that both of the brake pads become engaged on each of the tires. If you unscrew these the entire way and it's still not grabbing your tire, then you would have to loosen that bottom bolt that I showed you earlier on, pull on the cable, get it good and tight, and then you can adjust them accordingly. So you want to have it so when you pull the brake lever that it kind of grabs the rear tire first and then grabs the front tire. Then that'll stop your bike. So it will take a little time to adjust those cables, but you will get it eventually. And like I said, you can always pull on this cable and get it tight there too if the bolts do not work for you. So let's do a little test. And pull the brake lever and it stops the bike. So there it is. That is pretty easy. I replaced 2 brake levers with 1 brake lever that runs both the front and the rear brake. Like I said, this is a very simple project. It probably took me maybe 10-15 minutes to do it. Now all I have to do is install the chain guard and I'm ready to ride. Now I've already got this engine running. I've ridden it around the block a couple times, so I know it's working great. So I'll be sure to leave a link to this brake lever that I purchased on Amazon in the video description below, so be sure to check that out and for any other information I may add after I post this video. So if you haven't watched it yet, be sure to check out my other video of me building this bike, as well as my other video of me building my first motorized bicycle. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. I will have more videos coming out, so I hope to see you then. Have a good night, guys.